Thank you for the kind introduction. So, welcome everybody from back after lunch. How's everybody doing? Great. Okay, good. I'm not going to let this be a low energy after lunch session. That's not allowed. That's not how we do it at T360. So I'm going to talk loud. I'm going to go fast. You're going to take a lot of notes. Hopefully you're going to learn something, and hopefully you'll remember it. So let's get started. So we're talking about the digitization of our industry and where we are. So where we are in that process. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about what's happening in the broader market, what's happening with technology, just to kind of orient us first. And then we're going to dive into the specifics of the MLS technology industry. So I've spoken with some colleagues in the industry, and it feels like we're at the end of the beginning. You know, we've had real estate technology that's been significant for a few decades now. And it's just now that it seems like the consumer technology and the technology that's generally available is now coming to fruition in ways that are really revolutionary and cool for real estate, and we're going to dive into a few of those. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the shift that's happening across all industries and in most of the technology landscape. We're going to look at the speed of that change, because that's something that I think in the real estate industry we have this reputation as being behind, and in some places we are. It's absolutely true. But the general industry, consumer media, entertainment, lots of other verticals are moving really quickly and creating things that we can use and leverage in real estate. We're going to dive into a few technology trends that we've analyzed that think are impactful and meaningful to MLS and to MLS executives. We're going to look at those impacts, we're going to talk about what comes next, and then lastly, I'm going to leave you with some suggestions about how to win, how to remain very relevant, very valuable, highly useful, and something that will create great careers, jobs, lives for all the agents that you serve. So first of all, let's talk about the shift. So what happens is, when things change, when new technology comes into a market, even really smart executives get it wrong. So that's just to keep that in mind. And we've got a few examples of these. So this is Michael Dell, the CEO of Dell. If anybody remembers, Dell was the huge thing in the 90s. They were the huge computer technology company, and still are. They've managed to go and change, but this is Michael Dell saying, I just don't get it with these Apple guys. They should just shut it all down. Forget it. Bill Gates also said, you can't win. This is something. And now we're talking about Apple being the largest technology company in history, right? And neither Michael Dell nor Bill Gates are dumb. Like, these are pretty bright men with a lot of track record behind them, terrific business experience, right? Steve Ballmer, CEO of Microsoft, said this about Google. Like, Google's not happening. We don't think they're going to play, all right? So the reason I'm showing you these is because there's a little bit of that in our industry, and sometimes a lot of it, where we look at new technology, new things coming to market, and say, well, that really doesn't apply to me. It doesn't apply to me. It's not going to work, right? So I'm just showing you, there's some very smart people who have said the same kind of thing. This is the CEO of Palm. Do anybody have a Palm Pilot? I was a Palm Pilot user. I love the Palm Pilot. It was super cool. And then, poof, it was gone, right? Blockbuster. Used to love going to Blockbuster. You walk around, you grab something, you say, this looks terrible, let's take it home and watch it, right? So, but they didn't see it coming. And now there's like just a few stores left. We're in it right now. Foot Locker saying, this Amazon thing, we sell shoes. We don't think it's a big deal, right? Okay, ignoring these shifts has big consequences. And again, this isn't like I'm not trying to scare anybody. We're trying to create a background for action, a background for understanding what's going on in the technology industry in general, and then interpreting it into our market. So I'm not saying anybody it's going to happen to you, but when we look at the broader industry, we see loss of market share. And it usually happens a little, everything seems like it's going okay, we're having our regular meetings, we're doing our regular stuff, right? And then poof, something happens and you are toast, right? Big opportunities are missed in this shift. So we're going to talk about that, ignoring the shift. It has real consequences that are specific. So Palm, which I used and loved, $53 billion market cap in 2000, they were dead within a decade. BlackBerry was 20% of the market share. Again, who in here used a BlackBerry? I gave up my BlackBerry. I was kicking and screaming. I had to get dragged over the iPhone because everybody started making fun of me for carrying around that BlackBerry for so long. Literally, I'm a little bit of a late adopter in certain areas of technology. They crashed 20% in less than 0.1% market share. Okay, Blockbuster collapses from 9,000 stores. I think this slide says there's 9 stores. I think they're down to 1 store now. So this is a giant, Blockbuster's an iconic brand. Everybody went there, everybody knew it, right? So big loss of market share and big missed opportunities. Excite could have bought Google for $1 million. Blockbuster could have bought Netflix for $50 million. Yahoo could have bought Facebook. Yahoo decided to not take the money from Microsoft and end up selling for 10% of the price, right? So these are and granted, smart people, super capable, height of their industry, some of the brightest people in the business world making this mistake. So that's just to say, it's an easy mistake to make, to misgauge how technology is going to impact your industry and your market. It's easy. Big, smart, intelligent people do it all the time, right? So let's talk about the velocity of change in the general technology market. Speed to market has changed. How quickly products come in and get used, it's pretty incredible. So the telephone was 75 years, the TV was 13 years. This is to get to 50 million users. The internet took 4 years to get to 50 million users, and Angry Birds took 35 days. Okay? When we find something we like, especially if it's flinging a bird at a bunch of pigs, we jump on that sucker. We are there. We're good to go. So the pace was too fast for these companies, right? And I know everybody here goes, but we're in real estate. We're running an MLS. This is not us, right? Well, what do you think these guys thought in their boardrooms? What do you think they said to each other when they saw new competitors or new things coming into the market? They said the same thing, right? And they're no smarter, no dumber, and you can make lots of cases for that. So it was too fast for them. Big changes in who's leading the industry. Right now, it was Exxon, GE, Microsoft, Citigroup, Bank of America. The only one in the top 5 still is Microsoft. Everybody else got cycled out, right? Big changes there. All right, so Mr. Jackman, you've scared the hell out of us. You've told us that everything, all fire and brimstone, the general technology industry can change, and we don't know what's going to happen. But really, what are the impacts on MLS? Why does this matter to an MLS executive? Why do we care? So let's talk about specifically why it matters to you. So the big question is, will the multiple listing system, in its own way, it's going to be particular to this funky, weird, creative, dysfunctional industry we call real estate that we all love, right? It's going to be in its own way. We don't do things like others. But is it going to undergo a similar transformation as other industries? Are we going to see that, right? So if you look at what's happening in brokerage right now, who's paying attention to brokerage? I am. I know our team at T360 is. You're seeing some pretty wild stuff over there. I think just today there was, $800 million in investment announced between Compass and Open Door. Okay, so stack that on top of the $3 billion that's already been put into real estate brokerage in the last 24 months. Okay, to give you perspective on the last time we put $1 billion into the industry was back in the 90s, and what came out of that $1 billion that went into industry was Realogy and Home Services of America, the 2 largest brokerages in the country. And that was just $1 billion 20 years ago, right? Now we're talking about $3.5 billion going into our industry. So you've got to know, and in the conversations we have with brokers, it isn't that people are not shaking in their boots, but they're paying attention. They're seeing all that money coming in, and if we're arrogant enough to think it's not going to affect MLS, that's too much money. That's too many brokers, and things are going to change, and consolidations are going to happen. It's too fast. So the MLS industry is going to follow this trend. It's going to be in its own way. It isn't, nobody's going to come in and hand any one of you. I'll take any part of that $400 million that SoftBank gave to Compass. That'd be great. I'm sure any of us would, right? But it's not going to look like that. Our businesses are different. The MLS industry is different, right? So what are the trends? What are the technology trends that are likely to play a role here? Are going to be the things that we need to watch out for, that we need to look for, right? So trend number 1 is much larger organizations. And you're asking yourself, well, hey, that's not really a technology trend. But actually what enables technology are organizations that have resources. And it isn't to say that large is always better. Large isn't always better. Sometimes large is big and dysfunctional and bad, right? You can absolutely have something big and doesn't work very well. Larger organizations do have resources. And organizations that are particularly advantaged by resources are likely to do well. So if you just look at what's happening within the MLS industry, we're seeing these much larger organizations are being built. They're coming into being, right? These are the ones that have staff and resources and money and technology people and potentially the will to do some really great stuff, right? There will be an expression of that. And there's more of these mergers in the works. There's more of them. They're happening all the time. The big are getting bigger. They're getting bigger, and what that's giving them is better unit economics. They can buy things for much, much, much less. I think we all know that. But when you have organizations that are now getting really big, and a lot of them are, it starts to distort the landscape. Things start changing, right? And I'll talk about what some of those outcomes are. These larger organizations or more resourceful organizations are able to offer more services and products. They're able to actually assign a product manager and say, we're going to bring products in, we're going to market them, we're going to make sure they get adopted, we're going to take them, we're going to make sure the agents like them, we're going to kick out the ones that are crummy, we're going to vet them, we're going to do all those kinds of things. It takes resources to bring in great products and to provide them. And the other piece they're doing is they're serving the brokerage consolidation. They're able to work with brokers that are consolidating a bunch of different markets. And I'm not here to sell you on your only play is to go consolidate. That's not it. It's to recognize that when you have bigger and bigger organizations with bigger budgets and more money, it changes the technology landscape. It makes things possible that weren't possible before, which ultimately does benefit everybody here. In that some of these big organizations are going to go work on solving some problems. They're going to create some new models. They're going to create some ways of delivering products and services that we can all learn from, that we can all take advantage of. So it isn't to say, hey, you're either consolidating and you're going to win or you're going to lose. It's to this means something for how we're doing things, having these large organizations in the industry. So this is the current map. We update this. This is a T360 map. We update this about every 60 days, and we're tracking. We're looking at them, at where all the MLSs are and how many there are. The blue states are the ones that have a lot of MLSs and that we want to ideally see less of as long as everything's functional, right? The red states are the ones that have already gone through a lot of consolidation already and have fewer MLSs, right? So it's just we're tracking these, and the ones that are kind of light blue are somewhere in the middle. So we know where this is likely to happen. We understand where it's likely to emerge just based on where the targets are. All right, the second trend is demographics. And this one's kind of fun to talk about. So in our industry, the average realtor is a 54-year-old Caucasian married female homeowner. 54, right. That is almost exactly the same, almost down to the percent, as it was a decade ago. So a decade ago, I pulled the NAR stats, I looked at the surveys, it was 63%. So it was 3% higher, but basically the demography was very much the same. It was very similar. Same as 10 years ago. So what's changed? We're serving the same demography, Jack. Why would we change anything how we're doing it? It's the same people. It's not the same people. So U.S. adults spend 5.9 hours per day on digital media in 2017. That's almost 6 hours a day. That's an average, right? It was up from 5.6, all right? But if you look at 10 years ago, it was 2.7 hours. So we're spending twice as much time plugged into digital media as we are today as we were a decade ago. That's a big change, right? So you've got your 54-year-old today is a different 54-year-old. They're using a heck of a lot of mobile video. I see my crosshairs are maybe a little too bright to see there, but on the top end of the spectrum, that's 30 minutes a day on the top end of that graph. It's up from a decade ago, which was about 5 to 7 minutes a day. So people are using a lot of mobile video. That's big time, right? Next one up is if you look at adoption. How quickly, now we talked about it in the general, but this is specific to the 54-year-old, to the people that we're talking about. Adoption across every category is becoming much and much faster. We are turning into people who learn how to use technology quickly and apply it in their lives to make our lives better, whether that's to sell real estate or do something else. So the speed of this disruption is happening a lot faster. It took 80 years for the dishwasher. The internet was commonplace, like we said, it was about 4 years. It was less than a decade to become commonplace. Now things come out and they go viral, and they're, inside of a week, they're at 50 million users. It's nuts. So what's changing is us. We're different. We're not the same human beings from 10 years ago. We have a population that's much more comfortable with technology. We're much more comfortable picking up an app, installing it. We don't need to go to a training class. And I'll tell you where this shows up. So I as part of my personal journey in the industry, I went and got licensed and I sold real estate for a while. And I remember signing up for the MLS and they said, well, you got to come in and take an MLS class. And I said, take an MLS class? I'm a computer engineer. I don't take classes on using technology. That's not what I do. Like, I teach classes about technology. I'm not coming in for 4 hours to learn how to use the MLS. They're like, no, you have to do it. We won't give you your access. You have to come do it. So I went in and did it. That is going away, y'all. That is not how people want to do this today. I'm Gen X, I'm 44. You take people my age and you go, you got to go to a 4-hour class to learn how the MLS. I'm like, if the MLS takes 4 hours to learn, you built it wrong. You built it wrong, okay? Thank you. So, trend 3. There's a technology revolution outside the MLS. And I'm going to put some things on a time frame just to kind of try to link up the two worlds. And it's a short time frame. I could have made it much longer, put a lot more stuff on it. So 1991, the World Wide Web was available to the public. 1996, Realtor.com launched. 2001, we passed IDX and VOW. 2006, we had Zillow. 2007 is the iPhone. So all this other consumer tech, since the launch of the World Wide Web, we get the iPhone. So we're 27 years into the tech revolution. 27 years. Some of the things that we're seeing is easy-to-use products. That's all they're being built, right? That's become the normal thing, right? Because people that are building applications today are working on an app model. If a person can't download it and use it without having to talk to anybody, loser, you failed, right? Okay? That's where the demographics of the users are, is that's what they're used to. No one showed me how to use any of these products. I just installed them and started using them, right? The other piece that's pervasive in the general technology market that we're not making use of yet in our core technology is this personalization component. Your apps are not just this, like my Netflix is way different from yours, I promise you, right? It's way different. Yours is way different than mine, right? Everybody's apps, my Amazon's so different from everybody else's. They're totally personal. And what does that make them to me? Way more valuable and useful. Way more. Like, I won't give up my Amazon for nothing because it's shopping for things I don't even know about and bringing them to me, right? It's getting me to watch TV shows where I get to the end of it and it's like, I had no idea this existed and it's amazing. I'm going to watch all of them right now and blow through my whole weekend, right? It's so good at getting me what I need, right? That doesn't happen for us. Our MLS systems and tools are not yet doing this at a high level. You have to go, if you want something personalized, you got to go in and build it yourself and you got to save a search and you got to name it. The MLS is not coming to you and saying, hey, this property right here, that client right there, they're going to work. Let's make it happen, right? So that's where we're headed, and that's just one. There's a ton of use cases for this, a ton of things we can talk about. Personalization is big. VR and AR are becoming mainstream. No, we're not going to drive virtual reality. We're not going to drive augmented reality. Real estate is a fast follower or maybe a slow follower industry for mainstream consumer tech, but people are buying these every year, and there's more and more coming out. And at some point, most people will have them. I know I'm buying, this is the first year, I said I'm kind of a late adopter, even though I'm a tech guy. I usually don't buy the first generation, the second generation, because I want people who are going to pay a lot of money and play with them and report bugs to go through that. Like, I don't want to mess with the early stuff. I want to wait until it's something that all the kinks have been worked out. And I'm about to buy an Oculus Go. And I'm not saying I'm a user study of one, right? Not a good user study. But the point is, that's $200, and it looks like they've kind of worked the kinks out. They understand how to do it, and I don't have to pay $5,000 for it, right? So this stuff is going to continue to become mainstream, which is going to lead to one of the things that you're going to need to know about. There are so many tools and apps now available. Again, not telling you anything you don't know. We all know they're out there, but all this is to put it in context of the people you're working with and the people we're going to serve in 5 years or 10 years. Their expectations are already in this world. So most of the core MLS industry technology was invented 15 years ago. That is pre-iPhone. That is pre-App Store. That is pre all the cool things that people do every day with their phones. Really. So what would you do if you knew the iPhone was coming, right? What would you do? Because that's where we are. That's where we are. We are pre-iPhone for MLS. We are still carrying our data around in buckets to try to make things work. We're still building the standards that we can even use to begin to have the conversation about how all this stuff is going to work together. We've got some really smart people burning the midnight oil trying to figure this out and putting in the hours and making it go, and we should thank them because they will bring us this. But where we are is it's happening. We're getting the standards. We're getting the lights are beginning to turn on. The next 2 years, there's going to be a lot of change, right? So the fourth trend is emerging technologies. So there's several emerging technologies that, again, Inman News like to write about them a lot, but they don't go very deep with them. They're not trying to understand them. They're just saying, hey, somebody sold a house using Bitcoin. So what, right? It's a good headline. That's been kind of the inside joke with a lot of the people that we talk to is like, if you want to get on Inman News, sell a house and use Bitcoin, and they'll write an article about you. It's a freebie, so anybody can use that. Feel free. So, but the ones that are, these are ones that appear to be having impact, and you may not be aware of it yet, so I'm going to kind of bring you up to speed on them. It's artificial intelligence, voice technology, and then we're going to talk a little bit about blockchain. So artificial intelligence infrastructure, and again, this is general industry, is standardizing. There are more tools and products for people that want to build and use AI capabilities. So Amazon has a whole published set of AI services. Google has a cloud AI service as well. IBM Watson is now available as a service to developers. And what that means is if you're a developer and you want to build some cool new app and you want to put some artificial intelligence technology into it to do something like recognize images, translate stuff to voice, do optical characteristics, take in a PDF and convert it into a text document, whatever you want to do, right? That's all now. It's just an API. You just plug into it. You don't have to build it from the ground up, and you don't have to have a PhD. You can take a developer off the street, teach them a few principles, and they can begin to use some fundamentals of artificial intelligence techniques like machine learning. So it's available. So the same developers building all kinds of apps in all kinds of markets are getting that right now. There are AI applications that are emerging in real estate. Chat, we see a lot of chatbots. They're not real smart right now. Image tagging is a big one. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that one. Lead scoring, voice applications. We're going to talk about that one. Valuation, generating better home valuations. Personalization of information. Home search. Transaction and compliance, being able to have an artificial intelligence or machine learning system identify where there might be problems in some of the documents. Not just that there's a document missing, but hey, we noticed these things about these fields, or this information doesn't look right. Digital assistants. We've got some on the market right now. Again, they're not real smart. They're kind of like 1.0 Siri smart. You ask them for something, they give you something else, right? But they're getting there, and the point is people are working on them. So these early applications in real estate, they're less science fiction, they're more pragmatic, they're much simpler. They're not trying to be a robot that's going to come and do an agent's job or a transaction manager's job. They're not. They're just trying to solve an immediate problem using some artificial intelligence, but it's there. It's underneath a lot of the software that many of you are using. You're just unaware of it, especially the newer tools, right? So all of these, the image recognition, automated listing, attribute tagging, and data integrity applications are probably the big ones for MLS, where it's going to play a big role. It's not hard to imagine a world where an agent goes in and just takes the photos and dumps them in the MLS, and the MLS tags all of the image. This is a kitchen, this is a bathroom. Oh, this open floor plan, this has natural light. It's not, there's stuff already there. Voice technology is an applied form of AI that is now in consumer mainstream adoption. Voice applications are an eventuality in the consumer market because it's where we're taking people. It's easier. We're using voice for a lot of stuff, and it's only going to continue. So I wanted to show you, this is a practical example of the voice technology. Well, this is the Amazon installed base to show you how many are using Echo. But then I want to show you this practical example of voice technology.
What you're going to hear is the Google Assistant actually calling a real salon to schedule the appointment for you.
So this is an artificial intelligence assistant. This is an AI assistant that Google has put together.
How can I help you? Hi, I'm calling to book a woman's haircut for a client. I'm looking for something on May 3rd. Sure, give me 1 second. Sure, what time are you looking for around?
Little details.
At 12 p.m. We do not have a 12 p.m. available. The closest we have to that is a 1:15. Do you have anything between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m.?
So that interaction, indistinguishable from most human interactions about scheduling an appointment. Wouldn't you agree? It looks the same, right? How many phone calls does this industry make to set up showings, arrange for repairs, do any kind of stuff? hundreds of thousands, if not millions a year of phone calls that people make. And I'm not saying, again, this is not like, oh, well, this plugs into the MLS in some way, but it's to say this is technology that is becoming prevalent in the general market. And I mean, I would want this assistant to schedule my showings for me or to do things for me, the remedial tasks, absolutely. Whether I get it from the MLS or not is another question, right? Blockchain and digital currency. So this one is the trickiest one. So there's some really smart people talking a lot about blockchain. They've got all kinds of things to say about it, right? All kinds of things. So we've got, Mark Anderson, the Anderson Horowitz, big VC firm. They've invested a ton of money in firms like Dropbox and all the ones you've heard of. They put a ton of money into. And he thinks this is incredible. This is the guy that, by the way, worked on the first web browser. So he knows tech. He has a long history in tech. Bill Gates thinks Bitcoin is just the best thing. He's like, this is incredible. Like, he really thinks it's amazing, okay? Of course, we have some comedians, right, that have things to say about it. It's gold for nerds. I like to talk about it. And if you've talked to a Bitcoin fanatic, we call it the involuntary Bitcoin workshop. If you ever get locked in a room with a Bitcoin fanatic, you will get one of these. They will tell you all about it, and you will walk out of there. And I think Stephen Colbert's kind of right on that one. They really want you to get into it because it's their little hobby. So blockchain technology is revolutionary. It has some fundamentals that are really amazing in nature, but it's really hard to predict. So at this stage, for most of us, it's a little bit of a distraction, except for the technology vendors who are working like heck to figure out where to apply it, how to make use of it. For you guys, don't worry about it. But just know, it's on the horizon. It's something that we will talk about more. So we do have a full analysis both of this and of artificial intelligence chapters, which we got some great help on from some seasoned industry veterans that are in the room, to look at artificial intelligence and blockchain in a report that's coming out in December. All right. So what do we think is going to happen in 5 years? That was when Danae came to me and said, I want you to give a talk about technology trends and impacts and what are things going to look like. And I said, well, we got to scope limit that. What's our date? And she said, talk to us about 2023. Like, tell us about what is 5 years. And I said, all right, I'll get out my crystal ball. It's a little fuzzy, but I'll get it out. We'll see if we can make it work. So I got it out. Based on what we're looking at, here's some of the things we think are going to happen. So there will be haves and have-nots. Okay, I think the days where you could, as a small organization, go buy, an in-the-box MLS, it comes with everything, and then you run your MLS and you're happy, those days are kind of going away. You have to be much more sophisticated now because we're now in this world of apps. So some MLSs are going to be able to invest and navigate the future more effectively if they have resources. And resources isn't just cash. It's people. It's leadership. It's passion. It's wanting to be the best. It's wanting to provide great service. Those are resources too. But there will be haves and have-nots. And in general, the gap between resource-rich MLSs, those that have money, talent, tech leadership, vision, is going to become more and more wide, right? So that's what's going to happen because we're in you need resources to keep up with this. You need smart people to run it. You can't just go to one vendor and say, just make it all work for me, as most of you know. So the risks to the have-nots, there are things that have-nots will not have. They'll have lack of the new applications and modern interfaces. They're not going to have those. They will likely continue to experience consumers in their marketplace going elsewhere. Because as a consumer and as an agent, I want the data where I want the data. Like, I want to use it, and I want it to be smart, right? If I'm not getting that, I'm going to go elsewhere. Agents and brokers are going to actively look for other options. If they're in a have-not market, they're going to start getting loud about it. So you take your average 54-year-old in 5 years, well, that person is 49 today. So as that number ticks down, they're going to get less and less patient with this. They're going to say, this isn't acceptable. I'm used to getting everything done easily, on no training. It all works together. It plays together. Less and less acceptable. And we also expect that national or regional MLS players will make offers to the subscribers of the have-nots. With MLS of choice, with the reduction of boundaries, that larger players are going to say, hey, we can give you that. We can give you that and a bag of chips over here. Everything you want. We got all of it. So we see that. There will be a further separation of have and have-nots, and it's not going to be insubstantial. AI and big data is going to begin to beat data entry in a significant way. So the listing entry process and a lot of other data entry processes are going to get simpler. They're going to get more automated. More connectivity to public records and data. It's very conceivable that agents won't have to enter hardly any information in the MLS. They'll just say, I listed that home, and they upload their photos or their video, and they're done, right? Because the AI and big data can take care of the rest of it. We'll make sure all the data looks right. Oh, hey, is this a problem? Is this information right? I found 3 other records that had different square footage. Which one's the right one? Pick the one that you think is right or that you measured, right? Technology does that today. You know, I've got 3 different data sources. One of them's wrong. Tell me which one you want, right? So that's going to make data entry and listings much easier to work with. You can see this in image tagging already. This is an image tagging application that comes in and will go through any of the photos that are submitted and tag them with whatever features it notices about a room. It'll notice room type, it'll notice lighting, it'll notice all that. So this is technology you can plug in, and that's why I say in 5 years, yeah, it's going to happen. I can already. There's vendors out there that have this and want to integrate it with MLSs, but they need to have modern partners. They need to have people that can handle that, right, and want it. There's going to continue to be the media explosion. Remember how I said we're now spending twice as much time online and we're consuming a lot more video? That's not going away. We're going to continue to consume a tremendous amount of video media. That's going to continue to happen. So 3D walkthroughs, video tours, live stream, all becoming more important. And here's a key point. If you think the solution is, we'll just bring in a third-party vendor and let them host it on their site, what happens to all the data? They got it. MLS doesn't have it. They have it. They know what the consumers are interacting with. They know they get to collect all that information. So we got to build for that. We got to build for the MLS being a better warehouse for all this rich media. And we've got standards in the works. Some bright people in this room are working on it to make sure that that happens, because we need to keep it, right? But the media explosion is happening, and it's not slowing down, and we're going to come back, and I give you the same talk in 5 years, and we can double all the numbers in here. And that's what it's going to be, right? So this is one of the examples of, you know, a vendor that's selling into the industry, right? That's doing a pretty nice job. And I'll tell you, the other piece with this is, that it used to be you wanted to do this 2, 3, 4 years ago. Well, you had to buy a big fancy camera, it cost you a bunch of money, you know? But now it's like, nope, inexpensive camera. As a matter of fact, you might be able to do it with your phone in your pocket with a little thing on top of it. And you can get these walkthroughs, these 3Ds, these automated. You got stuff now, you just walk around and it generates a floor plan for you, right? So all the cost of that is coming down. And the answer can't be, oh, well, just if you like that, just go use a vendor. That can't be the answer. We've got to be smarter and better about this in order to make sure the MLS retains its value and is the place where all data lives, right? But the value's in the media. It's not just the photos anymore. Mobile, everything, all right? We've already got populations, like I said earlier, they're used to the App Store mentality, so more of our lives can be run from phone, and real estate's no exception to this at all. People want to do everything from their phone. When you talk about virtual brokerages like EXP, you talk about Home Smarts and Realty One groups where people don't go into the office ever, right? There's lots of companies now, there's no office. There's an office only because it's mandated by the state. It's got a sign and a door, and that's it, right? So mobile delivery for everything is part of the picture here. So all of these capabilities, listing entry, managing your business, doing all the stuff you do, we've got to deliver it through mobile. Because in 5 years, your customers they're here today. If you had it today, they'd use it today, right? But there's enough tech in the industry now where we can get there. Integration drives product options. All these things that people want to do, we've got to get better at giving them the things they want to do. And this is by adopting and keeping up with standards and making sure that our data is portable. And I know I'm sounding a little preachy right now. I'm a tech guy. I've done a lot of work in brokerage, done a lot of work in franchise. And that this is the difference. When you talk to a vendor and they're like, oh, I do integration, and then you go, well, what standards do you use? And they go, well, we just have a custom thing or FTP as a file. You know you're in trouble on the brokerage side of the house. Like, this is not going to be a good experience. Like, I've seen this movie before, right? So the MLSs need to be the home of standards and innovation by being the hub for data integration, by providing what technology vendors needs and what the brokers needs. Again, I don't want to be preachy. I know I'm preaching to the choir here. We got a lot of great companies in here, great organizations. So, but adoption of standards is imperative for living in this app store world. It's got to happen. In 5 years, and maybe today, maybe because of an announcement right before this, there will be new MLS players. So if all of the existing players were built on 15-year-old technology, and they're working like heck to update and build and create, and many of them are doing a great job, right? But there will be new MLS players because now I don't have to buy a rack of servers. I can just go sign up on Amazon, right? I can build, you can, as a software developer, you could build an MLS if you wanted to get into it, and it would be easier in many ways because a lot of the infrastructure's there. You don't have to come up with all of it. So we expect to see one or more credible players attempting to take significant MLS market share in 5 years. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but we've got some that are working really hard on some amazing technology that is a leap way ahead of where we are as an industry. So how to win? How do you win this game? First of all, innovation is bursting. It's just happening. It's all around us. But many of the pieces we're still figuring out. We're still looking at them. We're still figuring out what's proven, what's viable, what's going to work. Change is happening really fast, but it's happening in the span of years, not months or weeks. Right? So you've got some time. This is by no means a game over situation. So the re-engineering, the work that is being done in MLS industry by some very hardworking vendors and very smart tech folks and some very dedicated MLS executives, it's big work, but it's not game over. There will be market leaders, and we should identify them, follow them, see what they're doing, and learn from them. Right? So that's part of how to win. So the first is, for the people in the room, with your own tech and your own platforms and what you provide to your agents. Look at your MLS versus benchmarks. Where are you? Take an honest assessment. And not just a customer satisfaction survey. Look at your stuff. Look at everybody else's stuff. Put it on a big board. Compare it. Yeah, we have. We don't have. Ooh, we need that, right? Do a real comparison. Dig deep. Look at your current member satisfaction. What are they saying? I know many of you do this, and you do a great job. Keep doing it. Take action, right? And then look at your resources. You're going to need resources. You're going to need smart people. You're going to need some staff. You're going to need some capital. You need all these things in order for it to work. You need some great technology partners to create this new vision. So, your situation. Define your vision for 2023. You got to get big picture. I think MLS innovation suffers from a few kinks, right? The main kink is we got to operate in MLS. You're operating in MLS, and you've got subscribers, and you've got a call center, you've got people that you need to serve. So you're in operation mode a lot in this industry. There's a lot of operation. So you got to get big picture, because innovating is not deciding what new fields you're going to add, right? Innovating is not deciding what new business rule you're going to add. That's just maintaining your existing stuff. That's just being responsive to your MLS committee, right? That's not innovating. So you need whiteboard time. You need to put a few hours on your agenda every week, every month. You lock yourself in a room, get with a whiteboard. Or you make some calls, or you network, you talk to people. You say, what are you doing? What do you think about for 2023? Where do you think things are going? You got to talk to some other people. You got to talk to the innovators. You got to read. So give yourself that time, because when you're talking about a big change, you got to have time for it. Define your purpose, vision, and strategy. Write it down. Get your leadership on board. Get everyone aligned so where they know this is the vision. We want to have an all-mobile MLS by 2023, whatever that means to you, right? We want to have an all-whatever, right? We're going to deliver service this way. We're going to support these offices like this, right? Whatever that is, get the leadership aligned. So define the vision. Get practical and creative about resources. Some of you are running great organizations today. Absolutely. You may not have the resources for what's coming. And you didn't do anything wrong. You just don't. So if you don't have the resources, it's okay to say you don't. Say, you know what? I don't think we have the resources to do the job that I have in mind or to create the vision. That's fine. No harm, no foul. So go get creative. It doesn't mean consolidation necessarily. It can, but it can mean a lot of other things. There's some really creative joint ventures going on in the industry right now. There's a bunch of powered by stuff. There's things where, this is a real innovative time. If you look around, you see all the different stuff that's being tried for how MLSs can work together. It is a time of innovation. And you can get creative. You don't have to give up things you don't want to give up. And you can learn about things that you don't know about that might help you in making great decisions for your membership and providing more member value. And lastly is focus and execute. Get it done. Most of life is execution. You spend a little time planning, you spend a little time getting creative and strategic and thinking and coming to conferences like this and talking to other great leaders, but then you get into it, right? And that's actually where the magic happens, is the execution, is getting into that piece. So once you've done it, you've got your strategy, here's where we're going. Design your projects, go get your budgets, get your staff assigned, get roles assigned, make sure they know what they're being held accountable to and when, and go make it happen. And that's what technology innovation looks like. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of focus. It's a lot of execution at the end of the day. Okay, so with that, every generation is right that their technology impact will cause a shift. We're seeing a shift right now. We're seeing all the technology was built that powers the iPhone and a lot of this amazing stuff that's coming to the market. It'll shape the next couple of decades. And then we'll have another wave come along. It's just part of the flow. Just go with the flow. This is what's happening. It's how it works. And we encourage you at T360 and with CMLS to take that leadership initiative, define your vision, set your plans in place, and focus and execute and make it happen. Thank you.